Hey guys, what's up? So, I haven't done this series in a while, and to be fair, this is not exactly the same as my other videos. This is more of a talk type thing, but I still think it belongs in my old series of cooking on a budget because we are still kind of talking about cooking on a budget. It's just that I'm not sharing a recipe. I plan on doing that soon, more preferably as soon as I can figure out a way to get out of here, though it's getting. I don't even want to get into that right now. But uh, do want to talk about cooking on a budget, and the main thing I want to talk about when it comes to cooking on a budget, especially if you're like somebody, a young person, like you're in college, you're just out of college, living on your own, you don't have that much money, but you are concerned about what you're eating. You don't want to blow all your money on fast food and always eating out, which, by the way, is not a good idea if you're on a budget anyway, because you waste way more money doing that than you do cooking. As far as the reason why I started this series a long time ago, and I really need to get back to doing it again. Um, yeah, you do need to learn to cook, but it comes down to, well, what should you be cooking? And it's one thing to just sit and say, well, just grab all the stuff that's on sale, and then learn to cook good stuff with that. But another thing is, like, what should your staples in the house be? Like, if you wanted to go down to bare minimum, right? What you could subsist on to get all your basic nutrients in, all the things you need to function. What should you get? What should be the bare minimum things you should have in the house to cook that you can also cook quickly and it isn't going to cost you all that much? Now, what I'm about to say may annoy some of you, because there's some of you out there who want variety all the time. So I'm going to state this. This is primarily for the people who understand what it means to be on a budget because they find themselves even eating ramen 6 out of 7 days of the week. Those people, I will say, you're already used to eating the same thing over and over again and finding new ways to twist it and spin it. This week, my ramen's going to have sriracha in it. Next week, tomorrow, my ramen's going to have, like, egg drop soup in it, or whatever you're going to do to try to change the flavor up or do something different, right? Well, what I'm about to mention is also that basic, but unlike ramen, will be better for you. You'll get more of the nutrients you need, you get the basic energy you need throughout the day, and you can spin it in a different number of ways depending on your level of creativity and how much knowledge you have in cooking and different recipes. It also happens to be a staple from my culture. Rice and beans. That's really all you need. Like, if you are on bare minimum, you need something in the house to eat. Rice and beans. It's a staple in different African style cultures for a reason. My parents are Haitian. That's what we grew up with. I mean, that's not all we ate, but you know how there's that staple with Western diets, meat and potatoes? And meat and potatoes is usually said in a way like, that's like the bare minimum, bare bones. Just meat and potatoes. Well, where I come from, it's rice and beans. That's the basis for dinner. You build everything else around that. I mean, I understand these days everything's built around meat dishes, which, as a meat eater myself, I really do think that's a bit overboard. You don't need to eat meat every freaking day. For a variety of reasons, it's not a good idea. But, as far as I'm concerned, and not just from what I'm concerned, what I've researched, you don't really need to go too far to make a decent meal on a budget, as long as you're willing to understand that when you're on a budget, you have to prioritize what you're eating is for. Like, generally, most of the time, especially in a society that's more leisurely, in a society that's well off and has a higher standard of living, we tend to eat for pleasure. The primary reason to eat, obviously, is for sustenance. But we tend to eat for pleasure. We love eating food that goes beyond, basic needs and functions. I mean, yeah, if we just simply went for simple proteins, starches, things like that, you don't really need to do all that much. And you could eat off of the same thing over and over again. I mean, hell, we do that with our pets a lot. Many times we give them the same kibble or the same types of cans of food. The cats or the dogs don't see the mind so much, unless you spoil the hell out of them. And even in nature, they just grab what they can find. And if what they're finding is basically the same things over and over again, they don't care. But we tend to make it more of a pleasurable thing, which isn't bad, but you need extra scratch for that. Like if you're the type of person who's like, okay, I'm going to be eating, say I'm going to be eating stir-fried beef and broccoli today for dinner, and then tomorrow we're going to be having filet mignon, and then tomorrow after that we're going to be having mushroom soup, cream of mushroom soup with, this type of special bread on the side, and then the day after that, like you got all these different dishes planned out, each one a little bit, more on a complex side, and it's more about just the taste. Oh, it's so good, and the whole feel of it. You need money for that, and if you're on a budget, that's not something you can do all the freaking time. You need something. You need a fallback. You need a basic thing to work with. And not only that, if you're just learning how to cook, or if you're trying to understand basic cooking for living, you have to figure out what your basic staples are, because it's the staples that you can build on. It's like, what can I start from and build from there? And where I come from, that thing you build from, rice and beans, if you got nothing else. Yes, you can build from a meat dish. You can like start with, say, okay, I just got chicken, what can I do with it? And then from there you build your meal. But there's also working off of the so-called side dish side, which doesn't have to be a side dish. It could be the main course, and you just put other things around it. Now, why do I say rice and beans? Well, for one thing, they're cheap. Rice and beans, especially dry beans, don't cost all that much. And they're not very hard to prepare. If you're going to be cooking them the old-fashioned way, it takes a little bit of getting used to. But you can still do it. And most likely, if you are somebody young growing up, I doubt unless you forked over the cash for it, like for a rice cooker or a pressure cooker or something, 9 times out of 10, you're probably cooking conventionally. I know rice cookers these days have gotten pretty cheap, so these days you can kind of get it done in there. But if you didn't have the scratch for that, they're still not hard to prepare. They're really not. The water to rice ratio that you when cooking it, and how to prepare it and putting the lid on top, doing it the old-fashioned way, very viable. And then beans, dry beans, just soak them overnight. I did a recipe, way in the past. You can look it up. I'll put the link below. You can look at one way. And I plan on putting up another rice and beans recipe on here as well, where you make the bean sauce and pour that over, and it's a little bit easier to do than the last one I did. But yeah, they're not hard to prepare, and they're very freaking cheap. But the other thing about a rice and beans dish is that pretty much almost just about all your nutrients are there. Not everything, but pretty much. You got your starches, you got your carbohydrates, and you do need carbs to survive. I know there are people on low-carb diets, but to eliminate carbs completely isn't necessarily good for you. You'll be able to get that from the rice. But you also need fiber, you also need protein, you also need certain vitamins. And you get that from the beans. So you got your fiber, you got your proteins, you got your starches all in one meal. If you decide you're going to throw a salad on the side, you're done. You really don't need anything else. You really don't. You can literally, and then not only that, if you know how to hook it up, you can still make it so that you're not eating the same thing. You are, but you aren't. Flavor-wise. One day you could just make it straight up like what I call Haitian style, where you just make the rice separate, you make the beans separate, you turn the beans into a sauce, you smother your rice with that, you season it. Of course, you're going to season the sauce real good, with your scallions and your garlic, flavor that in some oil, put that in, let the beans soak, boil it the next day, mash it down into a sauce, pour that over the white rice. It's really good. And then if you are the type who's so inclined, you can put a few beef bones in there or some bacon to really flavor that up. That can be one variation. Another variation is the one that I showed you before, where you actually have the beans already pre-soaked and pre-done, and then throw that in with the rice, and then cook it that way. And then you can flavor it that way, like you can do it with chicken broth, or you can do coconut rice and beans, which is what I did before. That's another way. There's different ways you can flip it. You can change the flavor profile and all that. You can use different types of rice. Of course, if you're doing anything other than plain old white rice, now you're starting to kind of risk bumping up the costs a bit. It depends. If you're moving from regular white long grain rice to short grain white rice, you're not really spending all that much more, or you might even be spending the same amount. Parboiled rice also doesn't really cost that much more. is when you start moving on to things like jasmine rice or basmati, brown rice. So even brown rice has now gone down in price, and brown rice is supposed to be healthier for you than white rice, so you can switch over to that. And that changes the flavor profile as well, especially if you do things like, put a little bit of olive oil, put some butter in. You can do things with it. But the main thing is you can grab these things and flip it in different ways, look up different recipes, different sauces to spice it up, and you're still getting all your nutrients and still maintaining your budget. Now, again, this is about cooking on a budget. This is not the food channel. I'm not speaking from that perspective where it's all about changing up the flavor profile and all this, eating for pleasure. This is like, look, you're on a budget, or you're young, you don't got that much money, or whatever. You need the basic thing in the house. In fact, this is what I grew up with when I lived on my own. This is what I always had in the cabinet. In fact, this is what I lived on for most of the time. And even now, I have a family. Thankfully, I got a bit more cash. It's not like we eat that all the time. But the one thing I make sure that we always have in the house, no matter what, rice and beans. It's the fallback plan. It's the basis for the dinner. It's where you can get all your basic ingredients. It doesn't cost all that much. And it will fill bellies. I highly recommend, if you're wondering, like, I don't know where to start, if you're cooking a budget, you're trying to learn what to cook, you're not too sure what to have in the house, what should I always have there, what can I start with, what's not going to kill me, in terms of money-wise, rice and beans. Learn to work with rice and beans. It's a staple for a reason. It's eaten by lots of people around the world for a reason. And that's the other thing I mentioned. It doesn't have to be the same beans either. It doesn't have to be black beans. It doesn't have to be kidney beans. You can work with pinto beans. You can work with peas. You can work with black-eyed peas. It works. Whew. So, yeah, there's that. I do plan, like I said, on doing another. I did one rice and beans dish earlier. I'm planning on showing you guys another one, which is it's another traditional dish. Fairly easy to make. Won't kill your budget. Got to put that one up soon. I just don't. This kitchen is just way too small, and it's just not going to work for it. But I did promise to show you guys a recipe, or at least talk to you about a recipe for the summer. And the summer is pretty much over now. I'm sorry, but in some parts of the country, it's still pretty hot. And to be perfectly honest, I drink this all the way through, except in wintertime, and even wintertime, depending on my mood, I drink it anyway. So, and it's Thai tea. Now, I did briefly touch on this refreshing drink on a Q&A I did. So I kind of already spilled the beans there, so technically I gave you guys a recipe already, but I never really went into it. So I'm going to get into it here as a bonus before I end the video. And this is for those of you who like Thai tea. Like, if those of you who've eaten Thai food, and I have, and I also make it, and I love it, you may notice in certain restaurants, they got that Thai tea, that orange really cold drink, it's got the milk on top and the crushed ice, and it tastes really freaking good. And sooner or later, if you're like me, you're going to want to know how you can have it at home. And of course, that's when you talk to somebody, you look at an Asian market or go online and you happen to see the bag of Thai tea, and they tend to be fragrant and tasty and all that, but they tend to cost a bit. I'm not saying that they're super expensive, but they're kind of up there, depending on where you get it from. And I was looking at these bags of tea, and I really started paying attention to the leaves, and realizing there's nothing special about the tea leaves at all. It's just black tea. I mean, I know some people saying, well, there's a special Thai red tea in there. It's pretty much just black tea or green tea with yellow food coloring put in, and then some vanilla flavoring or whatever. There's no reason why you can't do that at home. In fact, you can make this tea for a lot cheaper than you would be spending at the restaurant. Or arguably even from an Asian market or Amazon or wherever you happen to be buying these bags of Thai tea from. Now, unfortunately, the setup in the kitchen, I can't show you exactly how to make it, but me just saying it should be enough for you guys to figure out how to do it. It's not hard. If you want to make Thai tea at home, this is what I suggest. First of all, go to your market and buy yourself that really cheap black tea. Like, you ever see those boxes, like there's like 100 tea bags in there? You can usually get it for pretty cheap, like $3-4, maybe $5 match. Match? $5 max. Ugh, can't speak today. Grab one of those. Really cheap. You already got water at home, hopefully. The other thing you want to get your hands on. Now, this is for those people who really, really want that orange coloring in their tea. You don't really need it, but some people like it. So if you want that effect, my suggestion, get yourself some turmeric. That's going to put that color in the tea. But not only that, turmeric apparently is supposed to be pretty good for you. So you're adding a health benefit to the tea. You know, there's already health benefits in tea, but you know what I mean. So you can get some of that. Though turmeric, the price is going to be a little, I mean, it's not really too expensive to get some turmeric, but yeah, you are paying for a spice that, you know, a lot of people are into, and some people think it's somewhat exotic. So yeah, you might have to spend a little extra for it. It's up to you. It's not necessary, but it's up to you. Now, if you want to add a little extra twist or flavor to the tea, you do not have to do this, but it's just for taste. You can add cloves and or star anise. Be very careful with these though. Okay? Star anise and cloves are really strong. Star anise, by the way, for those of you who are interested, star anise tends to be the flavoring that they use for black licorice. So if you don't like black candies, like the black licorice candies, you probably don't want to mess with the star anise. Or if you still want to try it out, because star anise is actually used in a lot of Chinese dishes as well. You probably didn't know that because they use the flavor. A lot of Asian cooking, the flavors tend to be very light. They don't really make it too heavy, which is one thing I like about those dishes. Star anise tends to be used in the same way. It's light. So you can still enjoy something with star anise in it, even if you don't like black licorice candies. Just don't use too much of it. Same thing with the cloves. Cloves can be very overpowering. So make sure you're only using a little bit. Like the recipe I'm about to give you, you're not using much of it anyway. Now that's if you want to use it. Don't have to. So, and what I'm going to tell you, by the way, you can change it around. The main ingredients, all you really need to make Thai tea, you need black tea, you need water, and you need some type of milk. And that's it. Everything else is just dressing and extra flavoring. Really. This is what you're going to do. If you want to make a batch of tea, and this, it's been a while since I've made it, to be perfectly honest, because I've been so busy. But this should make you a decent amount. And you can, the thing is, you can store it. That's the other really cool thing about it. Like you can the tea base, you'll see what I mean. Okay, so this is what you're going to do. You're going to need 5 cups of water that you're going to boil, obviously. And you're going to need 6 bags of black tea. Depending how strong you want to make it, because Thai tea tends to be kind of strong, you might want to make it 7 bags. I find 5 cups of water, 6 bags of tea, that tends to work. Now, if you want to add the extra stuff to it, you're going to be adding about 1 to 2 tablespoons, I think, of the turmeric, 2 star anise stars, just 2. Don't go overboard. Just 2 is enough if you want to add that flavor. 3 whole cloves, and again, no more than that. If you want that extra little spicy clove kick in there, I personally like the taste of cloves. You may not. It's up to you, but it's not necessary. Okay? So, first thing you're going to do, boil the water. Now, if you happen to have a pressure cooker, you can do this in there, and it'll be really quick. I mean, where I'm at right now, boiling water tends to be pretty fast anyway, because now I have an electric stove, and if you jack that thing all the way up, your water will be boiling in under 3 minutes. It's ridiculous how fast. Well, I'd say just about 3, maybe 4 minutes. It's pretty fast. But you can also do this in a pressure cooker if you so desire. It's really up to you. It's not that important. But basically, you're going to boil the crap out the water. Then, of course, you're going to put your tea bags in. If you're putting in the pressure cooker, the tea bags are already in there. And if you're doing it in a pressure cooker, you're going to be putting the tea bags and whatever extra flavor, the turmeric, the star anise, the cloves. Put them in there, and you want to steep this stuff for a long time. Now, if it's in the pressure cooker, just pressure cook the shit out of that. Excuse my language. But yeah, it's going to take care of, this stuff pretty much for you. If you're doing this the conventional way, you're going to have this stuff steeping for about 10 minutes. You really want the flavor to be strong because, again, Thai tea tends to be strong. Now, that is your base. Obviously, you're going to be removing the tea bags and all the other stuff. And here's the one problem with using turmeric. Remember, it is a powder. So you may want to strain that, which means you probably want something like a tea strainer or a coffee strainer. There is like that kind of cheesecloth type strainer. You know the ones I'm talking about where you can kind of get the powder stuff out? You probably want one of those. If you don't care, and sometimes I just really don't care, you can just leave that in. It's not really that much of a problem. But if it is to you, then you probably want to strain that out. But yeah, just get the tea bags out, the cloves out, the star anise out, whatever extra, those whatever hard materials you got in the liquid, and that's your base. You got a lot now to work with. That base, you can just put it in the fridge and chill it, which you're going to need to do anyway. Because remember, we enjoy it cold. Put it in the fridge, keep it cold. When it's time to serve, you once again have some options. Now, generally, the way we usually see it is that it's layered. Usually with crushed ice. You can do it with ice cubes, but it's usually done with crushed ice. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your tea, the tea base, and you're going to put the crushed ice or ice cubes on the bottom. You're then going to pour the tea into your glass halfway. And then, here's your options. You can either put sweet condensed milk on top. You can put evaporated milk on top, which is what I prefer. Because I tend to also sweeten my tea base with, I'd say about 2 tablespoons of sugar. You don't need to do that. If you want to, that's one thing you can do. If you haven't sweetened your tea base, then you probably want to work with the condensed sweetened milk. I know some people who use both a mixture of sweetened condensed milk and evaporated milk. I think that's going a little overboard, but some people do that. If, however, you're lactose intolerant and or you just don't want to work with animal products, soy milk works, coconut milk works. In fact, coconut milk works really well with this. I find that the flavor works pretty well. Hemp milk works with it. Any other substitute will work well. The main thing is that layering effect that you want, because that's the way they serve it to you in the restaurants, right? So you just crushed ice, then the tea, then the bottom layer, and then whatever cream base you're putting on the top layer, and you're done. That's it. You'll have that kind of yellowish orange color there because of the turmeric if you decide to use that, and you won't have to worry about the food coloring because some people are worried about food coloring in their tea, and they do use food coloring in those teas when you buy the so-called official bag. Just saying, it's there. You got the color, you got the look, and you'll definitely have the flavor, and it won't cost you all that much. And you'll have plenty in the fridge to drink for later. Unless you're like me and my family where we drink it all the time where it disappears in about a day. So, there you go. That's my basic Thai tea recipe. In case you care about how I personally do it, I do it the way I described it to you. Put a little bit of star anise in there, turmeric and clove for the taste and for the color and all that. And then I put in evaporated milk as my base. Though sometimes I use coconut milk instead because I happen to like that flavor as well. Hemp milk also works. In fact, personally, I find that the creamier ones, the slightly thicker, creamier ones, tend to work best. You can do it with a lighter one, like say soy milk, coconut milk, almond milk. It still works. I just happen to find, like, texture and taste-wise, I notice the thicker ones tend to have a kind of creamier taste that I prefer. I like my Thai teas to have a kind of milky, creamier taste to it. Those like who've tried it, you know what I mean. Like when you use the lighter, more viscous liquids, when it's not as thick, there's something about the taste that doesn't feel as creamy. And that bothers me sometimes. So I'm just saying that that's the way I prefer it. But again, your own taste may vary. And the thing I like about this recipe is that you can alter it very easily to your liking. And it is pretty refreshing. I mean, it's going to be fall now. It's not going to be as hot, but that doesn't mean you still can't drink this stuff. We're still going to have warm enough days where this stuff is going to be pretty cool. I mean, people drink iced coffee pretty much all year long. I don't see any reason why you can't do that with this. So, enough yapping. I hope you found this useful. I'll catch you guys later.